Hi, in this video I'm going to cover the topic of Docker Compose, which can be of great use to developers. So what is Docker Compose? Compose is a tool for defining and running multi-container Docker applications, like for example a WordPress site. What is Docker Compose file? With the Compose, you use a YAML file to configure your application services. Then with a single command like docker-compose-d, you create and start all the services from your configuration that you have defined in the YAML file. So here you can see a sample of docker compose YAML file. We shall try to understand the structure of docker compose file. As you can see in the first line, it contains the key version. With the version key, we tell docker compose file format version we are going to use. Here in our case, it's version 3.3. The other versions of docker compose file formats are 1.x and 2.x. The differences between different docker compose file format versions is the keys. With each new version of docker compose file format, new keys have been introduced and some old keys have been deprecated. So here in this docker compose file you can see there are two services that have been defined, DB and WordPress. Here the compose file format predefined standard keys are version key in the first line and services key in the second line, and image, volumes, restart, environment, depends underscore on, image, ports, restart, environment. So these are the predefined standard keys of docker compose file format. So the custom keys that we have defined are DB and WordPress. Yeah, that is all. These are the custom keys that we have defined. So the docker volume db underscore data passes any updates made by WordPress to the database. So the WordPress service, you can see it forwards the port 80 on the container to the port 8000 on the host machine. So we use the default port for the WordPress, that is port 80. So the depends underscore on key tells the WordPress container to wait until the database service is up and running. So this service will not be up until the database service is up and running. So the sample of the docker compose file I have used can be found here, and refer to the below link to understand the version key word that we have used in the first line of the docker compose file. So to install the docker compose, so we can use this skull command, which will download the docker compose utility. I've taken a machine with docker pre-installed on it, so I will show. So this is the docker version that I'm using, 18.03 community edition. So as you can see, if you observe, we do not have any command as docker compose among the existing utilities which start with docker. There is no docker compose utility. So I have copy pasted the curl command, which will install the docker compose utility. So the Docker Compose utility is downloaded now, but it lacks execute permissions. As you can see, it lacks execute permissions. I will give execute permissions to it. So now you can see we have the Docker Compose utility. So we can check the Docker Compose version. The Docker Compose version that we have downloaded is 1.2.1. So we will try to deploy the WordPress site using this Docker Compose file. As I have already mentioned, you can find the Docker Compose file if you go to this link. I have already created a directory my_WordPress. So just create a directory where you can put your Docker Compose file. I have already created the Docker Compose file, docker compose docker-compose.yml. So copy pasted the content. So we can use the command docker compose -d, so which will pull down the images, MySQL and WordPress images, container images. So it is pulling down from the repositories. So you can see 2 services have been up. So you can see there are 2 containers that are running. As you can see, we have started the WordPress container on the port 8000 on the host machine. So we will access the WordPress site from the browser now to check it. So it is running, the WordPress container is running on the port 8000 in my host machine. So the IP address of my host machine is 192.168.58.101. So as you can see the WordPress site, let's install it. I'm creating a WordPress user with the username docker compose. Sorry, docker. The site title is docker compose, and I'm creating a WordPress user with the name docker. So this user account should, if we log into the database container and if we check the WordPress database, we should be able to find the docker user over there in the database container. So as you can see, the WordPress site is ready. From the WordPress container, to connect to MySQL, we have to install the MySQL client package. So from there we can observe, we will log into the database, and then we will see the WordPress user Docker, if it's created or not. Okay. Let me take the WordPress container ID. So you can find the list of commands I'm updating in the container, and then I will have to install MySQL client package. I will connect to the database container from here using this command. The username that we have defined is WordPress, and the password is WordPress. Let's connect to the database container. I've used wrong password initially, so that's the reason it has thrown up error. So let's enter into the WordPress database. Let's list the user accounts. Should be able to see the Docker user now, so you can see. So this is a view bring up an application using Docker Compose. So few more important points to be noted while using Docker Compose are points that need attention are compose version and compose file format version are two different things. So compose version is of compose utilities version, and compose file format version that we have discussed. The versions are 1, 2, 1.x, 2.x and 3.x. The differences being in terms of new keys being added to newer versions and deprecation of some of the older keys. And moreover, the very important point is compose doesn't support swarm mode. We cannot use compose with swarm mode to deploy services to multiple nodes in a swarm. All containers will be scheduled on a current node. Yeah, that is all.